Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 14, Elements of Research Design. And we are continuing our topic, Structuring the Research Process. And subtopic is Theoretical Orientation. Your research design needs to clearly spell out the data collection methods to be employed. Your methodological and philosophical orientations govern your choice of methods. Your research design would elucidate the methodological and theoretical basis of research and help you identify appropriate methods and techniques of data collection. For instance, if you have positivistic orientation, you would rely on observational method, because for you social reality would be an observable entity. On the other hand, if you adopt a phenomenological model, you would employ various kinds of interview to unreveal the logico-mathematical model of culture. A researcher conforming to the post-modernist approach would view social reality as multidimensional and record multiple voices and interpretations. An action research with limited time resources would employ triangulation, comprising multiple methods and multiple investigators, and focus group discussions. You have to carefully choose from the vast repertoire of sociological or anthropological methods the ones that suit your research purpose most. Let us move to the next point, universe and unit of study. Before starting with data collection, you have to identify the universe and the unit of study. The identification of universe implies demarcation of the physical area and social unit of study. Universe consists of the population within a well-defined area where the study is to be conducted. However, such a group is usually too large and not possible to be covered by a single investigator. Therefore, a smaller and more manageable group may be selected by sampling. The outlines of the universe and its attributes may be delineated more clearly by taking a census and then making the choice of the groups to work on. Within the broad universe, further specification of possible units that could be studied makes up the actual or effective universe. The groups selected as focus of study is called the unit of study. Now let us move to the next point, pilot study. The pilot study is the leading study in your research area. The pilot study leads the researcher to the full-length investigation depending on the size of the population and the amount of time. In other words, a pilot study is an explanatory study done before the actual work starts in the field. It is a pre-testing of your research methods and techniques in order to perfect them. Pilot study will ensure that the right questions have been put in the questionnaires for making the field work fruitful. It makes you aware of the difficulties beforehand and provides you an opportunity of modifying your techniques to suit field conditions. Pilot study depends upon the size of the population, the time available, and the availability of funds. Now let us move to the next point, sampling. A universe is often too large for an individual to work upon. A sample is the smaller representation of a larger whole. Sampling allows the researcher to work scientifically and saves time. Analyzing large quantities of material is wasteful, and an intense analysis of the fewer cases is economical. You need to be cautious and careful while sampling. As explained earlier, the universe refers to a defined population size. Such a universe may be further divided into depending on the specifications required. This is known as the stature or subpopulation. A stature is a divisible category which depends upon the kind of problem in which one is interested. A sampling frame includes all the elements of the population from which the sample is drawn. The determination of an error while sampling, statistically or qualitatively, is known as sampling error. The sample must be a true representative of the universe, as well as being adequate in size. Now let us move to the next point, data collection. After obtaining some idea and understanding your field and working out your methods and techniques of data collection, you may plan how to access the field. Quite often, social research requires the study of the other community, and researchers need to make extensive preparations to gain entry into the society under study. One needs to plan who would facilitate access and how one would contact such persons. It is also possible to study one's own society. Some scholars may not adhere to the idea of studying the other community only. We bring you an expert from the Madan who questioned the requirement of the personal study of an alien culture on the part of the every anthropologist. In addition to the question of studying the other or your own community, you need to be clear in mind whether you wish to keep the purpose of research overt or covert. While in covert research, the research remains distinguished and the researcher does not bother about the convincing the informant. The overt research implies the challenge of convincing the respondents and winning over their trust. You have to adopt a meaningful role in the society under study and be careful about the sensitivities of your informants. Although the access and role of the researcher are negotiated and renegotiated in the field according to the circumstances, thoughtful planning gives you an edge to start the research process with adequate preparation. This is important because, firstly, if you identify the right contact person or the gatekeepers, the prominent persons of the community who have power to grant or deny access to the field, beforehand, your entry to the field would not be time-consuming and cumbersome. Prior interaction with the gatekeepers would also keep you adopt a suitable role in the field. Secondly, if you are already convinced whether to keep your research purpose overt or covert, you can effectively negotiate your access to the field. There are several ways of collecting your data. Primary data are those which you as a researcher collect yourself. You consult secondary data from reference sources like the library, etc. Primary data can be collected either through experiment or through survey. There are two main techniques of data collection, namely intensive fieldwork method and survey methods. Intensive fieldwork methods include observation, interview, case study, genealogy, etc. You can use one or more methods to collect data, taking into consideration the nature of investigation, objectives and scope of inquiry, financial resources and time available, and degree of accuracy. The data to be collected would need to be adequate and dependable. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self-Learning podcast.